Gavin Newlands.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It gives me great pleasure to deliver my maiden speech to the House today as the first SNP Member of Parliament from the home of Paisley in Renfrewshire North. The fact that it was our first victory has not been for lack of effort over the years. My honourable friend, the member for Kirkcaldy and Cowdenbeath, contested the seat in a 1990 by-election. He fought a brilliant and memorable campaign, despite the fact that he was hindered by an eager but occasionally ineffective 10-year-old boy called Gavin. I should have been better, Madam Deputy Speaker. By that point, I was a veteran, a seasoned campaigner keen to follow my dad to any political event. Two other campaigns from around the same time that I'm proud to have been part of were the campaigns against the iniquitous poll tax and the campaign against the closure of the Ravenscraig steel plant in my honourable friend's Motherwell and Wishaw constituency. The late 80s and 90s saw the Conservative government rip the heart out of hard-working families and communities right across Scotland. This was the height of Thatcherism, and our government's policies caused untold damage to Scotland, to our economy, to our people and to our self-confidence. However, little did we know at the time, but these decisions about Scotland, made on our behalf in Westminster and Whitehall against overwhelming Scottish public opinion, would cause a massive political shift in Scotland that would not only see the Conservatives all but wiped out for a generation, but would cause a depth of feeling so strong that a form of self-government was inevitable. Fast forward a quarter of a century, however, and here I stand, and as we say back home, I've brought honours. I'm immensely proud to be representing my home constituency of Paisley and Renfrewshire North, a constituency that I've lived in almost my entire life. I was very fortunate to be able to vote in what is not only my old primary school, but that of my two young daughters. At this point, Madam Deputy Speaker, I would like to say a few words about my predecessor, Jim Sheridan. Jim was a Member of Parliament for the area for 14 years. He was a dedicated constituency MP, and I'm sure that the whole House will want to join me in wishing him, his family and his staff all the very best for the future. Paisley and Renfrewshire North is one of the most diverse constituencies in Scotland, with some of the poorest communities in Scotland combined with some of the most affluent in the country. My own hometown of Renfrew is a royal borough and is known as the cradle of the Stuarts. It was also home to Scotland's first municipal airport and the RAF's 602 Squadron, rather misnamed, I have to say, as the City of Glasgow Squadron or Glasgow's Ain. Unfortunately, Renfrew is also home to the constituency's latest food bank, yet another symptom of the Tories' ideological obsession with welfare cuts that are hitting not only the poor and vulnerable, but hard-working families right across Renfrewshire. If you leave Renfrew and travel north west towards Inchinnan, you will pass the site of the Battle of Renfrew of 1164. This relatively little-known battle was actually one of the most significant civil battles in Scottish history. Somerled, the Lord of the Isles, guarded an army 15,000 strong and marched on Kilmalcolm IV's forces. After a bloody fight, Somerled was slain on the battlefield alongside thousands of his followers before the remainder beat a hasty retreat. So the message my honourable friend from the Healing and Yar should take from this story is, dinna mess with Renfrew. Just beyond Inchinnan, we find the great new town of Erskine, the second largest town in the constituency, no less. Indeed, a study by the Post Office last year declared that Erskine was the second most desirable postcode in Scotland to live. As we continue westward, we pass the charming village of Bishopton, and on our journey down the Renfrewshire Riviera, we come across the lovely riverside village of Langbank, which affords magnificent views down to the Firth of Clyde. On a clear day, Madam Deputy Speaker, if you crane your neck and you've good eyesight, you may be able to see the obscenity of Trident nuclear submarines as they slip and slither up the Clyde to Faz Lane. We were well aware of the shoddy safety standards with regards to the handling and transporting of nuclear warheads long before Able Seaman McNeely's recent whistleblowing. On the 11th of January of this year, 50 miles per hour gales were battering the west coast of Scotland. As a result, high-sided vehicles were warned not to cross the Erskine Bridge over the Clyde. Now, I'm not sure about you, Madam Deputy Speaker, but the very last thing I want driving over a 150-foot high bridge during such high winds is a convoy loaded with nuclear warheads. Yet, unbelievably, that is exactly what the MOD chose to do. You can rest assured, Madam Deputy Speaker, that my colleagues and I will not only lead the fight for better maintenance and security of these weapons, but we will ensure that the voices calling for the complete abolition of these obscene and senseless weapons of mass destruction are heard loud and heard often. My constituency includes a number of affluent towns and villages such as Langbank, Crossley, Bridge of Weir, Brookfield and Houston, although it should be noted that despite their relative wealth, these areas still have pockets of deprivation. Just outside Paisley lies Linwood, another area deeply damaged for generations by Thatcherite economics. The famous Linwood car plant, which provided work for 13,000 people at its height, had its government support pulled, and overnight the town was devastated. Parts of Paisley, including Whitehorn and Ralston, are slightly more affluent, but certainly not without their own issues. Shortridge, Goxton, Ferguson Park and Gallowhill all have pockets of deprivation, but a people whose spirit is unbending in the face of Tory misery. This House should note with deep regret and concern that the Paisley Job Centre has doled out the most sanctions in the entire west of Scotland. That sanctions across Renfrewshire have soared by 148% since 2010. That the demand for the aid of food banks in Renfrewshire has exploded by 1,763% since 2012. And that 1 in 5 kids go to bed hungry each night. This is a legacy of the coalition government. It is a record of this Conservative government, and they should be ashamed. This budget will do nothing to lift any one of these people out of poverty. In fact, it will have the reverse effect. Countless children will, before long, find themselves living in poverty through no fault of their own. But I'm sure they will be comforted by the fact that this government's response to child poverty is to change the definition of child poverty. This government believes if you fiddle with the figures to show what you want them to, that children and their families, as if by magic, will soon find themselves out of poverty and living a life of comfort. The message that came from the Chancellor last week was clear. Do not work in the public sector, do not have children, do not find yourself out of work, and do not, heaven forbid, be a young person. Madam Deputy Speaker, over the last few weeks I've received countless messages from constituents who are growing increasingly frustrated and angry at the Tory government arrogance. The Conservatives, the party that was near routing in Scotland with the worst result in history and with only one MP, deigns to tell Scots that we cannot have what we voted for in overwhelming numbers. This government must stop playing games with the Scottish electorate and devolve the powers as proposed, without caveat, without veto and without delay.